After the Sunday night football game, the Bears versus Packers, in Matt Nagy's post-game press conference, he said this: have some personal pride, have a freaking sense of urgency. He was talking to the defense in that press conference. He basically called them out after an embarrassing loss on Sunday night. And I think this can't look any more stupider than it looks. You're calling out a defense that has been eighth in the NFL in points allowed, 13th in yards. And the problem with the team is you. The problem is the offense. It's your play calling. It's your abysmal play calling, which has got the defense not playing that hard because they did look disinterested yesterday. But it's because of you. It's because nobody respects you. Nobody likes you as a coach. And everybody, the players and the fan base, want Matt Nagy to be fired. I mean, since 2018, when he got to the Bears, people like to use that 2018 season as a basis, but he was 9th in points. But just because he was 9th in points doesn't mean that their offense was good. They were 21st in yards, so they didn't move the ball that well. They just scored because their defense set them up in great field position, and they were in position to score those points. 2019, 29th in yards, 29th in points. 2020, 31st in yards, 29th in points. So when we talked about Matt Patricia earlier on in the episode, Matt Nagy is the opposite of that. Matt Nagy was supposed to come in as a great offensive guru, QB coach, and his offense has been bad. Same as Patricia was supposed to go to the Lions as a great defensive coach, and their defense has been bad. And that goes back to the point that I was telling you about Andy Reid's coaching tree being overrated. Matt Nagy only worked 1 year as an offensive coordinator for Andy Reid. In that 1 year, they were 5th in yards, 6th in points on a really good Kansas City Chiefs team. But you look at the offensive coordinators for Andy Reid's coaching tree. Pat Shurmur didn't work out with the Giants. Doug Peterson, he did work out because they won a Super Bowl, but now in hindsight, we're looking more at Frank Reich than we're looking at Doug Peterson, and we see the problems that Peterson has had this year with the Eagles. Then you look at Matt Nagy, who's a disaster, and Brad Childress, who got fired from the Vikings in 2010. So Andy Reid's track record with offensive coordinators becoming good head coaches from his coaching tree is not impressive. The best coaches have been John Harbaugh, special teams coordinator, Ron Rivera, defensive coordinator, and Sean McDermott, defensive coordinator. And some honorable mentions are Leslie Frazier, Todd Bowles, who are both defensive coaches as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned that 2018 season. It was lightning in a bottle. And obviously you mentioned some of the numbers there. They looked better. They were 21st in yards still, but 9th in scoring. And I think that says a lot about the situation the defense put them in. The defense that year was 1st in scoring, points, and rushing yards allowed. So, the defense was setting them up very well that season. And I'll be the first person to admit, I fell for that 2018 Matt Nagy season. He looked like a genius, but it helped a lot that Mitchell Trubisky looked better that season than he has since then. The defense looked better that season than it has since then. And now you look at him last year, offensively, 29th in offensive yards and points, 27th and 28th in rushing yards and touchdowns, 25th in passing yards and touchdowns. Then, so far this year, 31st in offensive passing yards and points per game, 32nd in rushing yards and touchdowns, 25th and 19th in passing yards and touchdowns. So clearly, he's not the guy. I think it's becoming more and more obvious every year, and we can't keep clinging on to one season. And I mentioned Mitchell Trubisky has not played well since his rookie year.
Second year.
His second year. My apologies. But I think some of that has to be attributed to Matt Nagy. He has not progressed at all. He has not developed whatsoever. He's regressed since then. And at worst, even if a quarterback doesn't have talent like that, if he showed that 2018 season, he looked pretty solid, I think is fair to say. And then he came out the next season. Where was that?
Well, even in 2018, Mitchell Trubisky couldn't see one side of the field. He only really passed to one side of the field, and there were stats that proved it. I don't have them on me, but I saw him that year. He wasn't good then. I think everybody knew Mitchell Trubisky wasn't that guy. But I also believe that Matt Nagy ruined him as well. I mean, not only did you shatter the kid's confidence, and I call him kid and I'm younger than him, but in hindsight, when the NFL, there's so many older players, you ruined Mitchell Trubisky's confidence by bringing in Nick Foles, and then last year bringing in Chase Daniel to replace him for a couple games. Like, you really shattered Trubisky's confidence. And I think if you're a coach, you have to try to find the best way to get the most out of your players. I believe if this was Kyle Shanahan, Trubisky wouldn't look like this. If this was a better head offensive coach, Trubisky wouldn't look like this. I think Trubisky, he has talent and he's good. If they utilized him more in the run game to run, I think he's okay. He's not as bad as what he's been made out to be. But then again, he's always going to be tied to Deshaun and Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. And the Bears traded up for him as well. I think it's safe to say that after this year, after the season's over, Matt Nagy will get fired and Ryan Pace will get fired. I was looking at Ryan Pace's track record in the draft. I didn't look at his free agent signings or his trades. I looked at the draft. Ryan Pace is not bad at drafting. He's an okay drafter. But unfortunately, that Mitchell Trubisky and trading up for Trubisky pick is going to haunt him for the rest of his general managing career, because you traded up for Trubisky and he didn't even have an interview with Deshaun Watson. He didn't even sit him down for an interview. You picked a guy who's probably going to go down as a bust over two, safe to say, like maybe future Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Yeah, and even if you 1,000% believe that Mitchell Trubisky is your guy, to not even have an interview with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was no under-the-radar guy. He was the best quarterback in college football the year before, won them the national championship. Like, that's inexcusable. And that's just not being prepared come draft time. Like, how do you afford yourself the opportunity to properly scout a player and you don't even have a sit-down meeting with him? So I think that they need to take a page out of the Lions playbook, out of the Texans playbook, hit the reset button. And the tough thing for them now is they've been set back a couple of years by whatever's happened to this offense. Mitchell Trubisky is essentially worthless at this point in his career. So where do they go from here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first things first, they got to fire Matt Nagy and bring in a new head coach. Who that's going to be, we don't know. Hey, what's up, guys? You just finished watching a clip of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran.
My name is Jack Barteck.
My name is River Brown.
And we are your hosts for this podcast. We want to thank you guys for watching the clip. Like, subscribe, and comment, and share if you would care to, because it helps us grow. We're trying to make this a full-time thing. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting, and see you next time.